Hello and welcome to this episode of Coded to Thrive, where we dive into Gene Key 24. This is the shadow of addiction, the gift of invention, and the city of silence. This is a contemplation, so this is a reflection on not only this Gene Key, but my personal experience. And I'm sharing this with you for you to understand or be inspired, really, to take this information, to apply it to your life so that you can shift and so that we can all be at our best, because we are coded to thrive. This is information that is here for us to be at our best. It's really about love. It's really about loving ourselves unconditionally so that we can love others unconditionally. And that's how we change not only our lives, but the lives of everyone around us. So join me as we walk around the garden and contemplate Gene Key 24. All right, so let's start with the shadow. Shadow of addiction. So what Rudd mentions, and what really comes up for me, is this notion that addiction is really about escaping not just desire, but escaping these really uncomfortable feelings that we feel. And these are feelings that might be there constantly, not only in our bodies in the form of stress, but also in terms of our thinking. And what he talks about are these thinking patterns, these behaviors that we have that just keep repeating themselves. We keep repeating these same ways of thinking about ourselves and the world, and it keeps us stuck. We just get stuck. And there are two ways in which we stay stuck. And one is that when we do have these moments where we're confronted with these feelings that are heavy, that we don't want to feel, we either numb ourselves through, let's say, eating or watching shows or whatever it is that we numb it with, or we overstimulate ourselves. So this is like okay, I got to do things so I don't have to think about this. So this is where we get to any form of addiction, not just to substances, but it's really about it's these thinking patterns that we have. And the way that he describes it, I thought this has always been really interesting to me, is that he says that typically our addictive thinking patterns, our behaviors, are circular. And so we get stuck in a loop of thinking, and then there's a gap between one way of thinking to the next. And he says, like, these gaps in awareness, these glitches, they can last from a second to minutes to days to weeks to months, and that's when we're confronted with our suffering. That's when we really feel these uncomfortable feelings, and it's just like, whoa. And I know, like, the way that I typically respond to that is by eating. I'll just start eating. I'll just go into the kitchen and I'll just grab food and I'll just keep eating until I feel the feeling of not just fullness, but just like overwhelm of food, so that I don't have to feel the feeling. Another is to just start watching TV shows, and I'll just keep watching them, the marathon type of thing. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. In fact, I have other aspects of my design that, I get inspiration from those, but it's just that I'm not being honest with myself. And that's what Richard Rudd really says. It's like, this is where you need to be honest with yourself about how your behavioral patterns are really your thinking. Like, where is it that you have thoughts that keep you in this, that have this really heavy gravity? He talks about gravity and levity. He says there are thoughts and behaviors that are just heavy, and they bring us into this heavy shadow state. And that's where we get stuck. It's where we just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And it's just because we're not being honest with ourselves. And, when I'm working with clients and really just living it myself, right? Really living my truth, it requires a couple of things. And it starts with radical, compassionate honesty, followed by taking full accountability for everything in our lives, because I believe that I'm a conscious creator of my reality. And by taking responsibility for everything in my life, I'm 100% free to create the life that I love. So radical, compassionate honesty, full accountability, courage. Courage is very important, and an unconditional love. And it's the courage actually that's really, really important with regard to the 24th gene key, because when we do get these gaps in our awareness, in our loops of thinking, it gives us the opportunity to make a quantum leap into a new loop that is higher. That's where the levity comes in. That's where we can actually get into the gift. And in order to do that, again, you have to recognize when those gaps come, and then be honest with yourself and sit with what's coming through for you. Don't numb yourself, don't overstimulate, but just sit. And then Richard Russ says, this is where something will seed itself that will allow you to make the quantum leap. The only thing is you don't know what it's going to be. It's a complete surprise. And that's where the courage comes in. Because in a way, you're also letting an old version of you die. Now, it's never dead, because everything exists all at the same time. And that version of you will always be there. In fact, what happens often with this gene key, and I have personal experience with that, is that, I'll make some changes and then I'll slowly fall back into an old pattern. And that's where potentially not being honest with myself comes in. And the real way to change, again, is, to be honest, to make a list of things that where we are numbing ourselves, and it's also where our desires are. Like, for me, there's a strong desire to want a companion, right? To want a companion because I love sharing my life. I love sharing experiences with another person and feel this deep, deep bond and friendship, and be able to play together and, again, share in the beautiful moments of life together. The only thing is that there's some codependency that can come in, that I need that to be happy, that I need someone to love me so that I can give myself permission to love myself. It's the difference between when I love myself, I don't need anyone, but I'm happy to share my love. The other pattern is that I need someone else to feel love, and then I'm not empowered. That's where I give my power away. And I'm not living in unconditional love, and I'm not being honest with myself, and I'm not taking accountability for my own life, because I know that everything I need is within me. And so with this gene key, it's asking for courage. Richard Rudd says it's really about like reaching out into the unknown and letting this higher energy, this higher being, this higher essence grab you and pull you into the light. So part of this too is what he says is like invention as the gift is really about not knowing what's going to move through you. He mentions the example of a great tennis player. And a great tennis player, in those crazy moments, will do something completely unexpected, out of the ordinary, out of a pattern that the opponent can't anticipate. And even they don't know, that great player doesn't know what they're going to be doing. It's like this full presence in the moment when something comes through us and we just reinvent ourselves. And that's really what these gaps are for. These gaps allow us to reinvent ourselves in ways that we don't know. We just know that it's going to be of a higher vibration. It's going to allow us to shine our truth, to be authentic, to speak from our heart, to speak from joy and connection. Because part of this is really this suffering that we feel, this suffering when we're confronted in the shadow state. It's the suffering of separation, that we're all alone. And I've really been experiencing that, well, right now, today. I spoke with my mom today, and I was just in tears, because it's just one of those moments where I really do feel alone. And I'm not. I'm surrounded. I have so many people that support me and love me, but I'm in that gap. So, and I've caught myself like overeating a little bit here and there, especially, I think yesterday was the change. So many cookies. Oh my God. All the cookies. But now I'm just like, okay, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to sit with it and see what comes. And what Richard Rudd says about shifting into this gift frequency is really, he says, it's creativity. He says creativity is the only thing that has enough oomph and enough chi to blast you into those higher states of consciousness. It's really about being a channel, really, is what it feels like, what it sounds like. And he does talk about what you want to do. He says you want to look at the addictive patterns that you have, the places where you're doing things that feel heavy, that you know are not serving you. For me, for example, that would be eating when I feel numb, being hard on myself for not working out, I'm also a human design person, professional. So the information is there for me, and like, am I living my design? One of the things is I'm very sensitive to devices, electromagnetics, and watching a show for 3 hours at night in my bed is not really conducive to not only a good rest, but is not really conducive to a healthy body, and it prevents me from really tapping into my intuition that's in my body, right? So it's things like that. And just other thoughts, again, around wanting that partner and all of that, and man, just playing that over and over, and it takes up so much space in my mind. And with the Siddhi of Silence, that's really what is being asked for also. It's just like, let the thinking cease. So back to the gift real quickly about this, these behaviors it's like, be honest about the behaviors, and then be open as you contemplate them. It's like, okay, how can I take this behavior that has a heavy gravity to it? Let me be honest about those, and then let me be open to how I can change that when I feel that again, or when I get into those habits again. How can I bring levity? How can I bring an action to it that is different from what I used to do, that will actually release life force, that is in alignment with creativity, in alignment with this excitement? And let it come when it comes, and then when it, again, through the gift of invention, which is to just something just comes out of nowhere, through contemplation on these patterns, then whenever it comes, take action, do it, and then keep doing that. And then it becomes, he says, it becomes a custom. He likes the term of it being a custom rather than a habit. It's a custom. And that's wonderful. One of the things is, for me, like a practical example is, I felt called to record this video earlier today, and This is a one take. And, I get in my head too, like, okay, what am I going to say? What I'm going to talk about? And are there things I maybe, could have said or could have added, or yeah, sure. But in the end, it is about confronting and being okay in the suffering. It's basically asking us to feel the feelings we need to feel. They say you need to feel it to heal it. And it sits in parts of our bodies. We hold on to trauma and emotions in our body. So it's all about being honest about where they sit, feel into them. And when you get into these moments where you just feel like the ground is giving way underneath you and you just feel like you're free falling and you feel kind of lost. And it can come overnight, guys. Like, I remember this year specifically, from like March to April, I had a month where I was just feeling so connected to myself. I had a lot of creativity coming through. Things were like, it was the first time I really started posting reels. And then one morning I woke up and I was just completely disconnected. Completely. I just felt like, whoa, where is this? It's like I fell back into the loop. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things that I was doing at the time, and I've had the tendency in the past, is I'm not a drinker. I used to not really be a smoker, and by smoker I mean marijuana, cannabis, or Santa Maria, as some people call it. It's a very powerful heart medicine, that's for sure, and I've used it in that capacity, and doing that with a lot more consciousness and grace, and it's very powerful that way. But what happens is, I'll do it, and it will give me inspiration, and then I'll do it the second day, and then the third day, and then the fourth day in a row. And that's when, instead of using it to remember, I use it to forget and numb myself. And at the time I was doing that, and I was pushing it, and I know it, and I think that was part of losing that connection. And it's okay, I forgive myself for that. It's just, okay, is there awareness now? And even now, like, I've had a few days here to myself here. I'm staying with friends, and I've had the house to myself. And yes, I have been eating all the cookies, which I've now replenished after going shopping yesterday. And there was again, being confronted with this, really feeling really kind of lost in the last few days, being in that gap. That, yeah, there was a tendency to want to grab and roll, a joint. And I told myself, okay, I'll use this, and I've been meditating a lot and doing a lot of breath work, which has been a new thing for me. I've always known that it's something that is beneficial to everyone, whether you have this gene key or not. Again, with the Siddhi of Silence, right? And that invention can only come in the silence. If you want to have a leap in your creativity and truly tap into your creativity, you have to quiet your mind. Creativity is something we can be open to as it moves through us. It's not something we can really force. Not really. We can set up a perfect environment for it. Again, by being silent in our mind, not thinking too much, being in our body, having the human design gate 9, gene key 9, all about focus. That it's about, okay, you have to sit still long enough to be able to focus, and cut out any external distraction like music or Facebook open on the tab or whatever, right? So you can create these situations and then be open to it coming through. And that's really what the Gift of Invention is about allowing it to move through you. So anyway, back to this example, like, I'd had a little bit of a throat ache because I had smoked a little bit this past weekend. It's now Sunday, the weekend before I had been. And that was for me like, no, I know if I smoke now, I'll just agitate it all. And with this sniffling I have, and everything with my throat. I was like, I know I'm just going to exacerbate it, and I know it's not needed right now. I don't need it, which is that honesty, right? I don't need it right now. In fact, I never need it. I again wholly go back to, I am a conscious creator of my reality, and everything that I need is within me. Everything I need is within me, and the external reality is just a reflection of that. So no, I don't need those things. Are they? They're tools, powerful tools, and at the right moment, the right time, with the right intention. Absolutely. Like, making a conscious ceremony, and I don't know, on a new moon or a full moon or any time. Maybe you say, okay, I'm gonna go. In 2 weeks, I'm gonna, rent a cabin in the woods, and on one of those days I'll do it, and then I'll journal after that, and all that stuff. That's great. That can really help. It's just, again, it's about awareness and consciousness. So, in practical terms, this is all about being honest in what type of substances and thinking patterns and behaviors and beliefs, that you're addicted to, that are there because you don't want to feel the uncomfortable feelings in your body. So just be honest what those are, and then change those behaviors. Especially when you're confronted in those moments where it's really uncomfortable, because, oh my God, is it uncomfortable? It's okay. Those gaps are really uncomfortable. And, it's okay. Like, reach out to a friend, be honest, but be with it. Be with it, breathe through it. One of the things I've had is, like, not only feel them in your body, but then bring the feelings to your heart. Like, allow them to be in your heart. Your heart is like a chalice, like a cup. Just let it sit there and just breathe, because it's okay. It's really okay to have those feelings. And they will go once we felt it completely. And it's a process, guys. Like, I've come out of a relationship that I was in for 6.5 years, 4.5 months ago. And I was living in Costa Rica, and now I'm here in Spain. And, I'm really sitting with myself and being honest with myself, and the patterns that I was stuck in throughout that relationship in ways that didn't serve me. It didn't serve my partner at the time. It didn't serve our relationship. In fact, it got to a point where I was like, something needs to change, or I just want to throw myself out of a window, because I can't keep living this way. I just can't. And that was all this year. One of them was around my finances, and being honest around, my financial situation. I used to be in a corporate environment, and, it was a very clear path, and financially that also made sense. And then I felt a call to exit that, because it just was not in alignment with what was moving through me and where I needed to go. And I brought a lot of uncertainty with it, and that's okay. But I made decisions that were not really about taking accountability, right? Radical, compassionate honesty and total accountability. And so this year I was like, okay, this needs to change. I can't keep living this way. And when I did do that from an honest place, my financial situation did change. And it's like the universe responded to this honest internal shift. And even my partner, and we'd had a similar discussion for a while. And I looked her in the eye and I said, listen, this needs to change, and I can't keep living this way, and it's also not fair to you. And she's like, you know what, you're right. And, I hear you. Take the space and time to do what you need to do, and go do it. And I did, and it shifted. And, with all of that, it is just about taking responsibility. And then here comes the final part, guys, with the Siddhi of Silence. He talks about the real addiction is the addiction to form. And what he is talking about is reincarnation and karma, and particularly reincarnation. And this is where this thing gets deep. and the shit gets real. And that is that what it's really about is to transcend form altogether, to not have to come back, to reincarnate, because we have learned what we need to learn and we have returned to unity and wholeness. Now, this sounds like big things, but what it really means is that you have learned the lessons that you need to learn. You are here for a reason. That's another thing. Either everything is random or nothing is random. And I live in a world where nothing is random because I'm a creator of my reality, Hermetic principle, cause and effect, and everything that comes with that. The all is mind. It's my thinking and my beliefs and my emotions and my actions and my choices that create my reality. I'm 100% responsible. And I chose to come here. And from a higher self perspective, I designed this life. I designed who I'm going to meet, where I'm going to meet them, how I'm going to meet them. I also chose my body, my human design, and my Gene Keys profile. I decided what I wanted to work on in this lifetime, and I set myself up that way, but I set myself up to thrive. I chose situations, family I was born into, the schooling I received, again, from a human design standpoint, my profile, my type, my decision-making authority, all of it. I designed it and designed my life so I could thrive, which is why my mission business, because I believe I'm, again, here for a reason. I have a mission, is that we're all coded to thrive. We're programmed to thrive. And the Gene Keys shows us what that programming is. I got Gene Key 24. It's my unconscious sun. It's my purpose, and the Gene Keys profile, and the hologenetic profile. And so that program is running, but at what frequency am I running that program? Am I in that shadow state, victim-based, fear-based, anger-filled, addiction part of the program? And have I elevated it to the gift frequency, the heart-opening, genius channeling gift frequency? And have I been able to touch the deepest essence of all of this, which is silence? And we can look at all of the Gene Keys in that, because even though we have our human design chart, we have our Gene Keys hologenetic profile, every drop of DNA has all 64 Gene Keys in them. And so they're always playing out. And if you think about this too, if you have the programming partners of certain Gene Keys, and then there's also the codon rings, in the end, you're going to be feeling all of them. You're also going to be feeling them from the people that are around you, from the collective. It's always there. So back to this reincarnation thing. So I shared something recently on my Facebook, and it was this realization I had about 5 or 6 years ago. I was having one of these gaps in awareness and feeling the full the full force of my suffering. And I was thinking, like, man, if I feel this every day, and if there are people that feel this every day, I can imagine that they want to step out of this life. Take their life. And it dawned on me, I was like, I know in my bones, personal truth in my bones, that if I throw myself in front of a train or whatever I do to exit this life, I'm just going to come right back and do this again. My higher self's going to be like, all right, well, let's do this again. Let's set it up this way. Let's, change some things, bring in this challenge so that, I can see the freedom in the challenge. And again, set up the shadows so I can access the gifts and embrace the essence, the Siddhi. I'm just going to come right back and do this again. And I told myself, fuck it. Fuck it. This is the lifetime where I'm going to transcend this. I don't want to have to come back again. And especially now, I'm surrounded by people that love me, that support me. I'm here. I see the suffering. So yeah, it's about breaking the karma. We're not breaking the karma. It's about not having to come back because we have fully embraced the karma. And the karma is not so much, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's how you react to life. It's how we react to these moments of suffering that seal our fate, that seal the karma. Again, it's not what happens to us in life, it's how we respond to it. That's our karma. And it's all there to help us. We designed this life so that we could ascend, so we could become enlightened. It's not out of the realm of possibility at all. It's actually the natural thing. And this whole suffering, the deepest form of suffering, the primal wound that we have, the core wound of humanity and of being in this human body is the separation. Because when we incarnate here and we forget, there's a veil of forgetfulness that comes in. And so it's like we have these breadcrumbs that allow us to find our way back to that oneness. And that's what we're here to do. And actually, that's what the Gene Keys is all about. It gives you the pathway back to unity. Your human design is a protocol for your personal ascension. It's getting cold here, so my nose is a little sniffly. Let me check if I'm still recording. Yes, still recording. That would be interesting. So let this be the lifetime, guys. Let this be the lifetime where you ascend. And what it really means is that you are, through the Gene Keys, through moving out of the shadow frequency into the gift frequency and starting to touch into the Siddhi, and you'll come in and out of that, you are raising the vibration of your body, of your vehicle, expanding your awareness and your consciousness to see the mythical, archetypal stories playing out in your life and what yours in particular is. And when you start doing that, and this is all from the 31st Gene Key, that's when you start, again, that's when you really not only have this deeper awareness, this deeper connection to the heart of life, as I call it, and this unconditional love that's just flowing through you, that you are embodying, that you love yourself and that you love reality, that you love your reality and what you're living and all the people in it. But you're actually able to bring your higher self, your Christ itself into your body. If you're able to hold those frequencies, and that's what the Gene Keys also tells us, is that really what this is about is when you get into these higher states, you are actually changing your body, you are changing your DNA, or accessing, or rather flipping on the different switches of your DNA. Again, if you've got all of your hologenetic profiles and all the shadows, and you just turn off the shadow and turn on the gift and the Siddhis, your body changes. Your endocrine system produces rarefied hormones that allow you to sustain these higher states of consciousness because it's taxing on your body. I call it the leaking vessel. I've had it multiple times in my life, actually, where kind of out of nowhere, I feel like I was just like touched by grace. And I would just like be overwhelmed with love. This feeling of love, it would bring tears of joy to my eyes. Tears of joy to my eyes. And I would be in those higher states. And I would stay in them sometimes for days. The first time this happened was on my 30th birthday. I stayed in it for about 7 days, and then I came back down. And I know one of the things that kept me in there was just radical honesty, and I was in so much creativity, and things were just moving through me. But in order to sustain that, it takes conscious awareness, guys, because in the end, we're always creating our reality. In every single moment, every single now moment, we're doing it, whether we want that responsibility or not. The ship is moving. Whether we step away from the wheel or not, the ship is moving. And the only moment that really exists is the present moment. And so are we there? Are we conscious? And are we consciously making decisions from a place of awareness? And this now comes back to these patterns of behavior and these patterns of thinking that are either keeping us trapped in the shadow and in addictive behaviors because we're avoiding responsibility or avoiding the feeling that comes with not taking the responsibility? Or are we being honest with ourselves and making the changes we need to make? And no, you are not alone. We all feel the suffering. It's part of being human. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you have the 24 in your design or not, in your hologenetic profile. It's going to be there. And so know that you're not alone. You got this. I got this. We got this. Feel free to comment below. I'm curious to hear about your experience. If you feel called to reach out to a loved one, to, I don't know, maybe sometimes it's good sometimes to have someone that you can talk to say, you know what, I need someone to just hold space for me while I confess. And I don't mean confess in a bad way. You know, confession is really helpful when it's done from a place of taking full accountability, a place of unconditional love, a place of courage. Guys, it takes courage. It's not always easy. And I know it's not all that deep, but it can be heavy sometimes, you know? So yeah, you know, yes, accountability. Yes, radical compassionate honesty. The compassionate part being a key term there too, huh? Courage. There's no substitute for courage. There's no shortcut for courage. You just got to do it. And then the unconditional love, because you are loved. You're always loved. And you're never alone. If you feel like reaching out, I'll put my info in the description of the video, and feel free to reach out. Reach out to a loved one. Journal. Write it down. You know, they say, and a really good tool for this is, you know, out of your head, out of your mind, and onto the paper. Just write it all out. And yeah, step into the unknown, guys. Step into your creativity. This is really what it's about. Whatever it is that you feel called to share with the world, start sharing it. This is how I'm doing it right now. I hope this has been helpful. I know it's been a long video. Again, comment on your personal experience, not only with this gene key, but just in general with creativity and this sense of being confronted with your suffering. What your beliefs are or feelings are around reincarnation, and coming back here over and over again until we can learn the lessons. If that's how you feel, I'm curious to know how you feel, and anything else you feel called to share. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking time if you made it till the end. And yeah, looking forward to sharing more of these. It's been a pleasure. Much love. And have a fantastic day and an amazing life. Let's go. Much love.